What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka UniqueMazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and we're back with another episode of At Me Bro. This is episode 10. Yeah, I'm proud of myself, and mostly I'm proud of me. I'm not really proud of Nelson, but how you doing anyway, Nelson?
I'm good, man. I'm prepared for your slander today as normal.
Well,
Listen, you have a 2-week pardon on your sensitivity and rudeness after
is
what
that why?
happened to the Chicago Bears. I feel like you're still in pain and you're still in the grieving mode.
I am.
You know what I mean? So I'll allow for that as a good friend.
Yes. But I'm sure that you have some pain yourself because the Knicks look almost as bad as the Bulls. Which before I step into the first thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to remind everybody first and foremost, if you forget and you just get caught up in just looking at us, which I know can happen. Don't forget to make sure you leave a like on the video, and also don't forget to subscribe, share the video as well. We still have that goal of once we reach 10,000 cumulative views across our shows. Now, we're not talking about the segments that we do, the bit segments where we break everything out. We're talking about the full shows. Once we get 10,000 cumulative views, At Me Bro will then spawn its own channel. So we are excited about that happening. That should be pretty cool. But that'll tell us, that we're about ready. So that aside, I got to talk about pain. Pain. Pain is a funny thing, man. Pain makes people do weird things, And I'm thinking about doing something pretty weird because I don't think that I don't know if there's ever been a worse time to be a Chicago Bulls fan. I really don't. It is horrible right now. Like, the outlook is so bad that usually, like, I got a friend of mine, right, who he calls me up and he literally begins the conversation by saying, I need to hear some of your infinite wisdom and some of your optimism on why I should feel better about fill in the blank Chicago sports situation, right? He called me today and he asked me, started the conversation out that way, talking about the Chicago Bulls. And I'm going to tell you, man, it's so bad that I mean, first and foremost, this team is not the least talented team in the NBA. It's not, right? Not by far, right? I'm not trying to say they should be in the top even in the playoffs right now or anything like that, but they're not the least talented team in the NBA. So you would think that would be some cause for optimism, right? But it's actually not. It actually feeds my pessimism. And the biggest reason why, whenever you have a problem that is as deep rooted as the Bulls issues, it always starts at the top, And some people go, oh, well, yeah, it's Gar and Pax. No, I go even higher than that. I'm going to ownership because Jerry Reinsdorf clearly, and people who are in Chicago probably are more aware of this than others, but Jerry Reinsdorf, the Bulls are very clearly secondary to him. He has made it known on more than one occasion, because he's also the owner of Chicago White Sox, that the Chicago White Sox are his major priority. He had mentioned once, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something to the effect of he would trade the Bulls championships for another World Series ring. So this is his mindset, right? This is how he's a super rich dude who gets to have a bunch of toys that he can care a little bit about, or more about one toy than he has the other, essentially. So you got this guy at the top, right? And I'm almost convinced the Bulls won 6 championships in 8 years by accident. I'm almost convinced that almost happened. The general manager prior to Jerry Krause drafted Michael Jordan. Rod Thorne was the general manager. He drafted Mike. And then after that, Jerry Krause did a great job putting pieces around Mike, right? But I don't feel like Reinsdorf had to really sign off on anything. it was kind of like, okay, here, Jerry, here's your little budget to work with. And then Jerry worked his magic. He's one of the most underrated guys in Chicago sports history, right? Well, now he has a completely inept front office right now. I'm talking about just the work. I mean, from every piece of every way you can evaluate a front office, the Chicago Bulls front office is poor. The only exception only thing I would give them is they've done fairly well identifying some talent late in drafts, right? So the Taj Gibsons, the Jimmy Butlers, those I'll give them credit for that. But they have hired and fired 5 coaches now, I believe there is. I think maybe Jim Boylan is the 6th coach. I don't know of any management regime that gets a chance to go through 5 head coaches before they're removed. But they're not removed. So we're sitting here, we're looking at them, and we're suffering as Bulls fans, looking at what's going on. And the coach that you just brought in or that promoted is now, he thinks he's the dude from Full Metal Jacket. And he's got people, my rifle is my friend. What, dude, what are you? I mean, he's got guys literally doing push-ups, man. Got guys doing 2 and 4 hour practices in between on the same nights or days before you go into back-to-backs. So bad that he calls a near mutiny. The players go to the Players Association and file a grievance. They establish a leadership committee. Robin Lopez is fighting Chris Dunn in practice. Bobby Portis point. Well, that wasn't on him, but still, I mean, there's a lot of garbage going on, and there's just no leadership. There's nothing there that says that there's anything that's going to change. And people are like, well, the Bulls are in a horrible position, and maybe they'll get Zion Williamson. I'm not even sure I would want to bring Zion Williamson into this mess. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. I'm just beside myself. Talk about pain.
Yeah, I mean, because of all that.
And now I'm gonna allow you to kick me while I'm down.
No, I'm not. I mean, I guess I am. I'm probably gonna kick you while you're down. I wasn't going to, but it's hard to talk about the Bulls without inadvertently kicking you.
Yeah,
because that's the situation that's where they put you, man. Like,
that's what you like to do.
Here's the thing I'll say. Bulls just played the Lakers, and one thing that's apparent is that you guys have drafted better than the Lakers have drafted, kind of a lot better. I think Wendell and Lauri Markkanen are great young. That's a great young front court that you have to move forward with. And going into the draft going forward, if you guys get a legitimate young guard, from a talent standpoint, you can turn it around. And when I say from a talent standpoint, I don't know if I'm a totally agree with you. When you say they're not the least talented team in the league, I mean, they're close though, right? They're close.
I don't know about that.
Here's why. And I don't want to make too many comparisons to the Knicks, but we have Kristaps Porzingis sitting on the bench, who's a legitimate all-star player, and he's a high-level all-star, right? Yeah. Where you guys don't have a high-level all-star on your team. You don't have an all-star on your team. So, and that's a big difference. That's a huge difference.
Oh, that's a huge difference.
You guys are
that's just one team, though.
As the Knicks, when we are missing our best player, which is bad because we're not good, even when we have him.
See, I would beg to differ. I would say that the Bulls are more talented than the Knicks without Porzingis, but because we're talking about basketball and one star, almost superstar, makes that big of a difference, right? But I do think that the Bulls are a more talented team as they are. I mean, if you take Porzingis out of the picture, I think the Bulls should beat the Knicks 4 out of 5 times.
I wouldn't go that far. I think they're slightly more talented without Porzingis, but we do have Porzingis, which is the point.
No, I'm saying what I'm saying is
right. My point is, though, let's not get distracted with the hypotheticals. We do have Porzingis, which makes you overall less talented.
But that's one team.
Yeah, but we're still not a playoff team, even if he's here right now, which is my point. So you guys are pretty far down, and we're gonna get into the rookies later. But the Suns, who are also a mess from a leadership standpoint, I think they are going forward more talented because there's today's talent and then there's your going forward talent. And when you're a bad team, and this is the situation that LA is in, you could throw LeBron James on a team if you want, But if your going forward talent doesn't have a high ceiling, you have a serious problem.
I don't see how you can say that the Suns roster going forward, going backwards, going side to side, going whatever direction they want to go is more talented than what the Bulls have on their roster. And I'm
Because
not
Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton project to be very, very high level all-stars.
Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are very talented players, but beyond them, I'm trying, and I don't think that you can put either of them in terms of, I don't think you can have either of those two guys having the same level of impact as Porzingis. So I don't think you can, I don't know that DeAndre Ayton projects to be that much better than Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. I don't think, and then you got Devin Booker, who obviously, yes, projects higher than Zach LaVine, but that's all that Phoenix has.
I think most NBA executives would trade your entire roster, with the exception of maybe Lauri Markkanen, for Devin Booker. But that haven't been. I mean, Devin Booker is he's one of the most yeah, he's one of the most sought after young, and he can play point, which is crazy. He's already looking in many ways like a young James Harden, which James playing incredible right now. So, but we're talking about a young James Harden, right? So earlier James. Point being though, the problem with your roster is you guys don't have an entirely young team, and the veterans that you have don't look like they'll be good for your team going forward.
Oh, that's no question. That's no
question.
And
that's the problem. See, New York and Phoenix you guys are like Cleveland to a degree. Your veterans and your young players are on completely different pages, which is not good. And when I say different pages, I don't just mean like in the locker room.
I know what you mean. They're like they have different goals. Like overall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a future where Jabari Parker and Zach LaVine are, in the roles that they're supposed to be relative to Markkanen and Wendell Carter and whoever you guys draft this year. I think those guys will have to be moved at some point. Now, Jabari has a shorter contract, so it's not that big of a deal.
He won't be there at next year.
But Zach LaVine is a problem because he's the quote-unquote best player on the squad. Now, I think Lauri Markkanen is the best player.
No, Lauri Markkanen is the best player.
But Zach LaVine is the quote-unquote best player. You know what I'm saying? He's the air quotes best player. He's the guy who thinks he's the best player. He's the guy who will score the most consistently. And so there's going to be a power struggle with Zach LaVine until he's gone or until a coach is there that can change the culture. And that's why I think you guys are the worst or second worst team. Well, I don't know. Cleveland is in a really awful position right now.
Cleveland's the Bulls have more talent than Cleveland. The Bulls have more talent than Atlanta. They have more talent than Atlanta. I mean, they have more talent than Atlanta.
Well, again, when we say talent, we mean going forward. And so I'm taking Zach LaVine off the table because I don't think he's positive talent for your squad, for what you guys need.
I see. I don't 100% agree with that. I think that he does need a coach. And he needs a coach that's going to say, hey, this is the system that we're going to play. And because Zach LaVine has a lot of the same capabilities that Devin Booker has. He just and honestly,
so. Devin Booker's a really, really great shooter. And Devin Booker,
how is Devin Booker a really great shooter and he's knocking down 32% of his threes this year?
Because
where is that really good? And on what planet is that a really good shooter?
It's the same thing there's a lot of guys who, for instance, James Harden, he hasn't for most of this year, he was not shooting well from behind the three-point line until he recently got hot. But everybody knows he's a great three-point shooter.
I don't go about that rep. The rep stuff. Dude,
no, it's not about rep, it's about form.
And so but at some point they got to go in. And Devin Booker's only a 36% career three-point shooter in his career. That's not a great three-point shooter.
But you look at Devin Booker's form and you say, okay, what we need to work on is his opportunities. And
we need to work on it going in.
I don't think Zach LaVine has the same ceiling as a shooter that Devin Booker has.
Well, you know what? That may be the case, but Devin Booker would never be the athlete
because they both
Zach is.
Yeah, but I don't think athleticism at Zach LaVine's size is that big of a deal.
What?
Not. I
How is
don't
that not the? How is that? I
because,
mean, beating
because
guys off the dribble is not that big of a deal if you're a two guard.
well, no, I think when it comes to beating guys off the dribble, Devin Booker and Zach LaVine will be roughly in the same place going forward because Devin Booker is bigger than he is. So it's a trade-off.
Okay, but
I don't think Devin Booker.
how about this? Devin Booker has been in the league for 4 seasons, but this is Devin Booker's 4th season. This is Zach LaVine's 5th season. Okay, so comparable time in the league. Zach LaVine is a clearly better 3-point shooter from a percentage standpoint than Devin Booker. Clearly, Zach LaVine's a 37% free throw shooter, and Devin Booker's just under 36%. He's a better and Zach LaVine shoots a higher percentage from the field overall. I'm talking about career. I'm not talking about.
I think they're too young to discuss career. I think when you talk about these
4
guys,
and 5 years.
It's all about projection.
Yeah, well, sometimes
I
projections
mean,
are broken.
I think to your point with Zach, and here's where I think almost I would put this in favor for your argument. With Zach, I would say 5 years is the marker where I think you calcify guys and you say you are what you are. And I think Zach might be in that place. I think Zach this year means a lot. However, because Zach basically missed a year due to injury, there's kind of like well, does that year, do you take that off? And that varies from player to player.
And that's his worst. That's actually his worst statistical year from an efficiency standpoint. Zach's not a super efficient player. He's not. But I think that there's some aspect of his that can come along for him because he's only 23 years old, and I think that he hasn't really played for a really good coach yet. I don't think he has. He's never really played for a good coach. He's been saddled with Chicago coaches his whole career for the most part.
That's exactly what I said, though. I said that Zach LaVine, and we haven't talked about Devin Booker as a playmaker. Like I said, he can also play point, which is a big factor.
But Zach can too.
I don't like Zach at the point. But that having been said, what I said about Chicago was unless either he changes or he's moved. And him changing, I agree with you, is predicated upon you guys getting better coaching. But I obviously, because of everything you complained about in the beginning, neither of us believes that's going to happen.
But see, I think the original argument was about talent, not about projection.
No, my point is the talent is attached to projection because
it is. But what I'm saying, when we start talking about projection, we're already talking about overall development, coaching, that whole nine. What I mean, and that actually goes to my point of, okay, this is what the Bulls are not getting, right? Yeah. They're not getting this. When I mention talent and them not being the least talented bunch, that is more of an indictment on what they're not getting, because there is enough there for the Bulls to at least be showing promise. There's enough talent on this roster that if there were the right leadership in place, the right head coach in place, that the Bulls could be showing promise. We saw it last year, and all of these pieces weren't even there. Last year, the Bulls had hit a run where they pretty much ruined their tanking, their whole tanking initiative. They run I think it was something like 7 out of 10. They beat Golden State, I believe, they had a chance to beat Golden State, and then Chris Dunn dunks and falls on his face and misses the last 45 seconds of the game. They were right there in that game, and that was in the midst of their 7-10 stretch. So that was a point where you see some promise. You're like, okay, well, I know the team isn't there yet, but we're showing in spurts, this is what you can do. There's been no spurts. There's been no spurts. It's just been sputters pretty much for the entire season. And to me, I don't think that's as much on the talent. I think it's more on the lack of coach. I want to talk about the NBA's midseason awards. We're a little bit past midseason, but it's around that time when you're starting to see everybody talk about, who's had the best first half of the season. And let's start off with the coach of the year, since we were just talking about coaching. I'm going to ask you right now, if you had to make your choice of the coach of the year, who would that be?
Budenholzer.
Budenholzer.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't.
That's hands down, no question. When you look at, they've had some roster changes since last year. Brooke Lopez being the biggest one, but for the most part, even before the year, to that point, Brooke Lopez wasn't looked upon as a big acquisition, but through his coaching, he's become a big acquisition.
Yeah.
And they've leapt from not just on paper. Like you look at Denver where they're in first place, or they were in first place until last night, but people had serious doubts about them in the playoffs. Whereas with Milwaukee, the projection is that they're going to be very strong in the playoffs this coming year. And it's really mostly coaching. And that alone, I mean, I was a fan of his in Atlanta. I just didn't think he had the roster to beat LeBron James. Joe Johnson and Al Horford were his best players. That just wasn't going to cut it. And he also had Josh Smith on the roster, which is not great. So he overcame Josh Smith to win 60 games every year or whatever he won. And now that in the moment he gets an MVP caliber player, and really not a second All-Star, he has a bunch of guys who are All-Star capable, but haven't done it yet and aren't on their own production looking like All-Stars, and they are arguably the best team in the league. So that's it for me, hands down, right away. When I look at Toronto, they're really on the same pace as they were last year, and with the acquisition of Kawhi Leonard, even though I do think Nurse is a great coach, I think he's edged out by Budenholzer because the Milwaukee Bucks have less depth than Toronto, and they're performing nearly the same. And this is the first time he's gotten there.
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth actually between the three of Nick Nurse and Budenholzer and actually Nate McMillan. Because I feel that I really like what the Pacers have done. I love the way he has taken those pieces, mostly pieces that they got in the Paul George trade, and really created a different identity for the team. So what he gets out of his second unit, which I'll talk about more in a second, I think is very impressive. But I would have to say, I'd probably have to agree with you that Budenholzer would be my pick.
Yeah, I would put Mike Malone above McMillan, even though I love McMillan. But I expected the Pacers to do what they're doing this year. Okay. They're not a surprise to me in any way. I think they play great defense. The young players are all getting better. They have decent depth at a couple of positions. If they ever run into a top flight point guard, that team is super scary in a lot of ways, especially if that point guard can play D. Yeah. So I think the Pacers are just good. I think people have just been sleeping on them, to be honest with you, which is not to take anything away from Nate. But in terms of this year, like last year, they almost beat the Cavaliers. And really, if it wasn't for a couple of calls, some could argue that they did beat the Cavaliers and they had taken away from them. I'm sure they feel that way in Indiana with the goaltending call and the turnover and stuff like that. Like, there's an argument that they were kind of robbed somewhat in that series. I'm not saying I'm not making that argument, but I'm saying that argument, if someone does make that argument, they have a reason to. So I expected them to come in and do well this year. He's been doing a good job there for a while, but not enough, I think, to put him over Milwaukee or Denver for that matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him over Milwaukee because I just think that I mean, you just look at the overall success, and really customizing, tweaking his offensive, his offensive approach to actually fit the talent that he has on his roster. That's always a big thing for me. I always really appreciate when a head coach says, okay, this is the way I usually do things, but if I try to do an exact carbon copy with this particular roster, it's not going to work. So how can I customize or change things up a little bit to make it match what, the personnel? And when I see those types of coaching jobs done, those are the most impressive to me.
And I think huge credit to him because he's winning in a style similar to Billy Donovan, who also probably deserves some nods. He's winning.
It's hard for him to get it because you got two of the best players in the NBA on your team. So
Steven Adams and a bunch of really he's got the most athletic team in the league.
Yeah.
Like from top to bottom. Those guys. I mean, if you see Ferguson jump, it's crazy.
Yeah,
like, he's kind of like Zach LaVine hops. It's crazy.
Yeah, he can. Yeah,
it's crazy,
insane.
right?
Yeah,
I saw him jump from the free throw line the other day. His like hairline was above the rim, not just his head. So I understand that he's got a talented roster and he's doing well with them, but their defense is amazing. But yeah, I'm definitely, but I think is the guy.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Let's talk about the rookie of the year, right? This is probably going to be a really short conversation. My rookie of the year is definitely Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic. I don't think you can really make a strong case to give it to anybody else. DeAndre Ayton's having a good season. So too is Trae Young's actually been a little bit better than I thought. But it helps that he's on a team that doesn't have anything else from the perimeter. So, you know, he's getting free reign, right? But I think it's Doncic. I don't think it's close.
I don't think it's close this year, but I have an interesting question because Doncic is clearly the runaway. Because not only, and let's talk about him for a second because he deserves it. My question on the Sim Hangout was, will this be a big mistake coming from Atlanta? Because that was a big move to give up the MVP of the EuroLeague at 19 years old. That's a child prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
And and I hadn't gotten a chance to watch full games. I watched as much footage as I could from like YouTube and stuff of his EuroLeague stuff. And it was, even from that footage, it was like, that step back is ridiculous, which I also brought up. And it comes to fruition that, yeah, all that was real because it's the EuroLeague. This isn't some, this isn't Division II basketball. It's not even Division I basketball. This is the best you can get beyond the NBA.
Yeah.
Veteran players of extreme talent and skill, and he's 19 years old. And right at
coaches.
And
good coaches.
Right, and good coaches. So, some of our coaches over there, some of our players over there, right? So it was amazing to me that they gave that up. It was also amazing to me that he didn't go first, although I understand Phoenix in terms of need. They would go with Ayton because Ayton's talent level from a big man standpoint, it could go very high. He looks good already. It could be very high. He needs to learn how to play defense. But my question to you is more going forward. Let's take Doncic out of the conversation because he's got a go-to move. He's a born leader. He's got every offensive skill in the book, right? So take Doncic aside. Who do you think will be the best rookie going forward outside of Doncic?
Outside of Doncic, I think it's going to probably be Ayton. I think it's going to. I'm very impressed with what he has done. I know he's on a bad team, and I know you very rarely hear about him. Like, dude is legitimately averaging probably the quietest 16 and almost 11 that you'll ever see a rookie average.
Yeah.
Without like people talking about him. Like, he actually has more win shares than Doncic. Like, he has 4.2 win shares. Luka Doncic has 3.2. So perhaps we shouldn't be saying it's as big of a runaway as we're saying, because if you look at it, and he's playing actually fewer minutes than Doncic. He's playing just under 31 minutes a night, and Doncic's playing 32. Doncic's averaging 20, but Doncic's averaging 27 and 5. That's 20 points, just under 7 boards, 5 assists. That's pretty sick for a. And
again, I don't like to look at the total numbers because these are young players, and you have to look at month by month, right? So, for instance, Kevin Knox is averaging 12.7 points right now. But for December, he averaged 18 points.
Yeah.
So what's more important? His recent games.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not going to go as far as to say Knox is the second best player in the class. I think it's possible. But I will say that as a Knicks fan, with the ninth pick,
I'm glad you prefaced that.
Oh, of course. No, I'm being totally realistic though. As a Knicks fan, I think at worst we got the 5th best player in the draft.
Oh yeah. Now, that's not crazy. That's not crazy. Well, I don't know, man. This draft actually
great draft.
It's pretty strong because Bagley looks like a good player too. I mean, he's only playing 23 minutes a night. Jaren Jackson's looking good. Trae Young's looking okay. Muhammad Bamba's is at least a defensive presence.
Yeah, although I do think Mitch Robinson looks like he might be a better player than Mo Bamba. Mitch Robinson is a freak. Way better than when he doesn't play. Like when he plays, we're so much better. And you consider the shape that he's in and how much he's playing. Yeah. So even though Mo Bamba might turn out to be a good player, it's almost hard not to consider that a miss for what was available in the draft. I
don't know, man. I think this dude is a defensive game changer.
Maybe, but they should have took Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, man. That kid is a gamer.
Yeah, he's
a professional point guard already. Like, that kid is so good. But as for right now, sometimes big men take a while, which is why I give Ayton a break. My main concern with Ayton is unless you can hit the three really consistently as a big, it's very hard to be super impactful as a big in today's NBA without playing great defense. And most teams would rather have a Clint Capella who could switch on pick and rolls and go get it at the rim, rebounding wise on both sides, and offensively is going to, score close to the basket on the pick and roll very consistently, than Ayton. Even when Ayton's good, like we saw this to a degree with the higher level version of Ayton with Boogie Cousins. And Boogie can do everything. He can pass, shoot, hit the three, inside, outside, free throws. Like Boogie is basically perfect offensively, but it just didn't lead to winning. I think partially because defensively, it's very tough in this league to have a big man who can't switch to pick and rolls, which is another reason that when it comes to Mo Bamba and Mitch Robinson, I'm like, yeah, that could go well. So Jaren Jackson Jr., that could go really well. So Ayton might be in a situation where he puts up really great numbers, but you just don't see Phoenix winning more.
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't think that he is the type of guy who you can just say he's not going to be a good defender. I think he's too long and athletic. He's a different type of an athlete than DeMarcus. DeMarcus is a plotter. Really, he is. He's a talented guy, and he has wiggle off the dribble. But on defense, he's a plotter. And he's very on defense, man. He's very much like an old school center. Very much, just the most I'm going to do is clog the middle.
I think his biggest problem, because the worst case scenario for him defensively should be Marc Gasol from a physical standpoint.
Yes,
but I don't think he has
a defensive worst case.
Yeah. But it's not. His case is worse than Marc Gasol's.
See, I think it's way early to.
I'm talking about DeMarcus Cousins.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So my problem with my question, because he's a young player. These are all kids. In fact, the guys we discussed, most of them are on the younger side, 20 and 19.
Yeah, he's 20.
They all have tons of room to develop. What he needs to do to be in that class, I think, with the tops of this very, very deep rookie class, from a winning standpoint, is to develop a defensive mindset. That's the main thing. Like, honestly, offensively, if he shoots the three a little better and gets better at nothing else, it's a net positive. But defensively, if that's where his improvement was, then I think he goes from being a numbers guy to an impact player. Whereas when I look at some of the other rookies, Jaren Jackson, he's already an impact player when he plays well. Kevin Knox, Fizdale just said he's becoming a guy we need on the floor already at 19 years old. That's crazy. And by the way, he's supposed to grow like another inch too. So he might wind up being 6'10" before this is all said and done.
Yeah. I actually did think that the Bulls, maybe they should have taken him, but I think they did the right thing with Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, the Bulls could have drafted Julius Erving this year. It would have been bad. So yeah.
We didn't talk about Wendell Carter, but he's a good player.
Oh yeah, actually, that's what I was just gonna say too.
Let me ask you something before we get off the rookies. I know we've been on here for a minute. Do you think Wendell Carter's ceiling is all-star, like real all-star, or more Horace Grant all-star?
I think Al Horford is his ceiling.
Okay, I
think slightly more athletic Al Horford is his ceiling. That's what I think. So he's not a superstar, right? But he is a really solid winning style big man who can do a little bit of everything, and that your team is better when he's on the floor. That's what I think he could be. But I think that the Bulls are losing him. Mentally, they're losing him right now. Because losing is one thing, but having horrible leadership, especially when you spent a year with Coach K, you're losing him.
And that's why when you said earlier in the show that the Knicks are looking nearly as bad as the Bulls, that's my biggest disagreement. Or if you put a little arrow next to all of the names of the players, like a trending arrow.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean the Knicks situation is better.
That's what it is. Fizdale and that whole crew in the front office, they have all of the arrows on our young talent pointed upward. And I wouldn't accuse them of this, but it wouldn't shock me if they purposefully ran rotations to lose, because if they played their most winning rotations all the time, they would wind up winning like 25 games this year, or you know what I mean, and 30 games. And they don't want that. They need to get a high draft pick. I think sometimes they purposefully do rotations to make sure that we develop but don't win.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree. I mean, I wouldn't disagree. And I also wouldn't say it's a bad idea.
Oh, I think it's a great idea. It's the best way to tank. Develop winning culture, but don't win too much. Easy.
I think it is. Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the 6-man award. And okay, well, as much as I would love to say that Derrick Rose is the 6th man of the year, I think he's in the conversation. Mm-hmm. But if I'm fair, I don't think I would have to go with Domantas Sabonis.
Okay, we're agreed on that. And I think it's really clear. Like, Domantas Sabonis is so good. People think he's better than Miles Turner. I think it's a conversation. Mm-hmm. It's a very deep position. Miles has been phenomenal on defense at times, and his offense comes and goes. Sabonis is such a big presence down there. I mean, he's averaging starter numbers. Was he like 16 and 10? I mean, that's crazy. That's awesome. And he's getting like 3 assists, 4 assists, something like that.
Yeah, I give him the edge over Julius Randle.
3 assists.
Yeah, give him the edge over Julius Randle because he is, I believe he's been coming off the bench the entire season. Julius Randle has a lot of starts in there, has some starts in there. And then to be frank, the Pacers are better.
That's what it is. It's that the Pacers are better because Julius Randle has been a beast, and he's in a situation where his team's injury situation has been pretty bad. Like, they've had so much inconsistency in the lineup. So for him to roll with those punches, and I mean, at times he's put up monster games.
Yeah, but he's started 23 games this year.
Yeah, that's a lot to start. I think by the end of the year, he will have not. He will probably be eligible because they want to play with your boy Mirotic.
Yeah,
and Mirotic
they've been bringing him off the bench. They brought him off the bench yesterday.
But is he fully healthy yet? Is he back?
I don't know. I don't. Yeah. It doesn't seem like. Boy, I'm telling you, Mirotic is a fragile young fellow.
Yeah,
he really is, man.
We know his face is fragile.
Oh yeah, well, Bobby knows it. Yeah, but I don't think.
I'm with you. Sabonis is the. I think right now he's the front runner. And because of their record, I don't think anybody will take it away from him because he's the most important 6th man this year.
Yeah. I mean, Derrick's had a great year. Derrick has had a fantastic year. But as much as I would, I mean, if Derrick won the 6th man, I don't think anybody could scream robbery. I mean, he's averaging 19 a game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 46% from 3-point range on 3.5 threes. Shooting just under 49% from the field. I don't think anybody can scream robbery, but the fact that the Timberwolves are under 500 makes it where, you got this other guy who's averaging 15 and 10 and his team's winning and he's playing a big role in them winning. There it is.
And there's also the defense. There's the fact that he shoots almost 77% from the line as a big, which is very important. Mm-hmm. There's the overall just presence and size and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that go in with it. We don't often, I think, grade defense enough, and I think he deserves credit for that. Although
the kid can play, man. He
if if Julius Randle goes back to the bench, which is I know they want him as a six man, and they go on a run, I think he will re-enter the conversation as a, well, he's in the conversation, but
he's in the conversation, but I don't think he gets past Sabonis. Because I don't think that the Pelicans will ever be that good.
Probably not.
So that's why I think that the Pacers are a team. The Pelicans are a squad with a couple, one fantastic player and some other decent players.
Oh, I disagree with that, but I'm not going to argue with that.
Yeah, I don't think they're a team, man.
I think their issue has been mostly injuries, because of Elfrid Payton and Mirotic. Those are key members.
Those are big guys.
And for them to lose, I don't think they have the depth to lose those guys. But when those guys are on the floor, you realize how good Drew Holiday and Julius Randle are. I think those two pieces, they have a lot of good players on their team. They just don't have a true second top flight all-star, but neither does Indiana. I think they're actually comparable teams in terms of talent. If not the Pelicans being more talented, the Pelicans just been hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I believe in some of those secondary pieces as much. But I mean, it's not a horrible team. I'm not trying to bash them necessarily, but I don't know that I believe in the secondary pieces quite as much. Let's talk about the defensive player of the year. That's what we didn't talk about, because you were saying that we're not grading defense, or people just overall aren't grading defense enough. Especially now when you're looking at scores at 145 to 135 in a regulation game. So clearly nobody's paying enough attention to defense. So who do you have for the defensive player of the year?
It's tough. There's a lot of great defenders out there right now. But my three would probably be the three guys at the small forward position: Paul George, Giannis, who plays power forward as well, and Kawhi are the best three, three of the best defenders in the league. Jeremy Grant has also played phenomenal defense. Part of the reason OKC is a top defensive team in the league. So I think you have to pick the best defensive player from the best defensive teams in the league. I think those are your guys. Marcus Smart is also up there, but I think the other three guys can defend more positions. Like Giannis can literally defend 1 through 5.
Yep.
So I would probably give it to Giannis from versatility alone. But I think when it comes to stopping someone, Kawhi is probably the best, but Paul George has really been phenomenal in a lot of situations, miss less time. So that's what it is for me. It's a 3-horse race between those guys, and whoever winds up with the best defense at the end of the year is probably where my vote would go.
Yeah, I got Paul George. I really think that, I mean, dude has just, especially at this point in his career, he's at a point in his career where guys generally start playing less defense. That's guys who can score like he can score and are the types of player that he is. They usually start playing less defense. My man is playing as much, if not more, defense than he ever did. And I know obviously you played with Russell Westbrook, but Russell Westbrook's playing the same kind of defense, because Russell Westbrook's not that far off in my defensive player of the year voting, honestly.
He's underrated right now, man. Like really underrated.
I mean, he is the best defensive point guard in the NBA right now. Right now he is. If you look at the way he's playing, if you look at some of the defensive metrics, what other point guards are doing against him, the way other teams' perimeter offenses are stagnant when he is on ball.
He's leading the league in steals. Him and Paul George are both leading the league in steals. That's crazy.
They're 1 and 2.
Oof,
so
that's sick. That is admirable.
It is, man. So he would be right there in the same conversation, but I would go with Paul George for sure. I just really feel like right now, one guy as a defensive force in the league, I think he's the one. I think he's the one for sure. So that wasn't a very long conversation because you keep agreeing with me. I knew that after a while you would begin to come along and
the people saw that I went first.
Huh? What
The
happened?
people saw that I
No,
went
I
first.
think that you, yeah, I think after a while, I think you're reading body language or something. I don't know when you're like part of the BAU
He's
or
the
something,
NLP.
part of the BAU. But all right, let's move on to the most improved player. Now, you know what? I had a question though about the most improved player. Can the most improved player, does it have to be somebody who has never been to a point of greatness, or are we talking about just their improvement from last year or their overall improvement period?
Well, this sounds like you're trying to shoehorn Derrick Rose into this
See,
conversation.
let me explain something. See, first of all, the level of evil that you bring all the time. It's the oh my God, I'm overcome with toxicity. I am right now. It's flowing through here. This area here, it's just coming. And stop it. Okay. Don't let that, you, you know what, Nelson? Don't let the devil use you. Don't you let the devil use you. Okay. Don't let him use you. Because that's what's happening right now. Now just listen to what I'm saying. First of all, I just asked a regular question. You had to go all down the street around the corner.
So you're not going to bring up Derrick Rose?
I didn't say what I wasn't going to do. I said I was asking a question about the criteria. What people thought the most improved
So
player should be.
I'll tell you. Here's the thing for me. I don't like to pick second-year players because there's supposed to be an expected leap between first year and second year. You're supposed to improve as a rookie. I don't think that's the same thing as like Victor Oladipo in his third or fourth year, moving into an all-star where he truly deserves it. However, if we were using second-year guys, then I think the overall most improved player in the league is probably De'Aaron Fox, because De'Aaron Fox went from who knows to gonna be a perennial all-star.
Yes.
But on that same team, Buddy Hield also massively improved.
Yes,
and we also talked about Julius Randle. Now, I think if you look at Julius Randle's second half last year, it kind of takes some of the, the glow off of his improvement in terms of the massiveness of it. But overall, Julius Randle last year to this year is a huge improvement, as is Sabonis. But in my heart, like the players who most shifted my perception of them were De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield.
So, what about Derrick?
Derrick's great, but here's the thing about Derrick. I think Derrick is a situation where he has changed his game, which is awesome. He fits into the category of comeback player of the year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking.
And if there was a comeback player of the year award, he would run away with it.
Well, why would you say it like that? Like why would you say it like the only thing he gets is something that don't exist? That's kind of how you said that.
That's not how I said it, man.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt.
I think there should be a comeback player of the year award, because I think what Derrick has done has been heroic and admirable, to be honest with you. Like Derrick coming back from years, it wasn't just one bad injury. We're talking about years. And this is a Grant Hill situation.
I know. There used to be a comeback player of the year, and they stopped.
I know, right? And I think they need to go back to it.
They do, and they should name it the Derrick Rose Award. That's what I think it should be called, the Derrick Rose Award.
Grant Hill also has a case because he basically has a robot ankle.
Nobody cares about that right now.
Oh, see, y'all see how he is?
Nobody cares about that right now. Every time I play a Derrick of the year, you know that skit from Coming to America, when every time I bring up Joe Louis, somebody got to bring up Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano. Every time I bring up Derrick Rose, somebody got to tell me about Grant Hill. They ain't talking about Grant Hill.
No, that ain't true, because he bring up Derrick Rose a lot. And
a lot of people always tell Grant Hill. I said Derrick Rose. They both light-skinned black men, but they're two totally different people. We don't have to bring up.
How come me giving Derrick Rose love ain't enough?
You don't know how to give love. You don't know how to give love.
He's doing great.
You don't know how to give. Your love is all backhanded, nasty love, man.
Humiliated by Jimmy Butler.
You give dirty love. You give dirty love, and it ain't the kind of dirty love that people like either. It's just bad. It's just altogether bad. It's just altogether bad.
Protecting Derrick Rose, he can protect himself.
No. See, See, that's the problem. There it is again. There it is again. You don't leave no man behind. You understand what I'm saying? You don't leave nobody behind. You want to leave people behind, and I'm not going to do it. Anyway, let's move on because this is just upsetting me. I'm already still going through for the Bears. And
you're only upset because in the beginning of the year, like he was going to run away with that award, and now he probably ain't going to get it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. All these suckers come from everywhere off the bench now. Now they special. Whatever. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to the MVP award. This is actually pretty interesting. This is an interesting conversation going on with the MVP award. I'm going to give mine. I think that it's Giannis. I'm almost, but I'm not. You know, we still got to wait for the second half of the season because the beard is coming. I mean, he's coming. He's coming hard for it, right? But for right now, because we're judging the entire first half, and I'm looking at the Bucks record, I'm looking at his supporting cast, I'm looking at everything he's doing. I can't skip over Giannis. You know, I think 2K did. They knew something. They felt it, and they went with him as the cover guy, and they may very well have tabbed the MVP with that decision. And I think right now, if I had to give it to somebody, it'd be him.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Oh, but I think a little more needs to be said about this. So first, let's talk about Giannis versus James. I think because of the defensive end, it doesn't get as close for me as it does for other people. James is tremendous offensively. He is the system offensively. And on the defensive end, he goes for steals from time to time. But Giannis is, you can almost say he's everything to that team.
He is.
On both sides of the floor. It is, and also from a rebounding standpoint. People forget rebounding is part of the game. It's almost a special teams of NBA basketball. You need offense, defense, and rebound.
Yes.
And Giannis is just as good as it gets for in terms of relativity to his team. Now, so Giannis is the person that I think, according to the criteria of the award, deserves the award the most this year. But I think the true MVP, like if I was to say who is actually the definition of the most valuable player in the league, the true definition, both in relation to their team and overall, and I hate to say this, is Steph Curry.
No.
I think Steph Curry is the most valuable player in the league. I think Steph Curry with the Golden State Warriors, when he's on the floor, they are a shoo-in to win the championship. When he's not on the floor, they're a good team, a really good team.
He's been on the floor when they not won the championship.
I'm talking about this year.
This year, okay.
Even the year that they didn't win the championship. I mean, you're talking about it took a suspension of Draymond Green and a really, really close series and some clutch shots to win that. Now, I do think that Steph, we talking about finals MVP. I think he gets a little bit of a bad rap because people look at how he's not produced in the finals and how he's been dinged up towards the end of the year without looking at the fact that he's also had big performances in big games. But I do think that criticism is valid the same way with James Harden, because with James Harden, he's never been as good in the playoffs as he was in the regular season. Has Steph been as good in the finals as he was? He's been as good in the playoffs, just not the finals. And I think it's a little unfair to throw that at Steph because he sets the bar so high. But when you look at other players, when you talk about falling short, other players have fallen similarly short all the time. The main thing is the Golden State Warriors are super duper stacked. So I would never give him the award because they're so stacked that, value is relative, right?
Yeah, he's not the most valuable player. I mean,
think he's the most valuable player though.
He's not the most valuable player, man. I mean, dude, especially not when you say in the truest sense of the term. I mean, you could take Steph Curry off of Golden State, and obviously they're not as good of a team. They're not.
I don't think Golden State wins the championship without Steph Curry.
But they're probably either in the finals or they're in Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals without him. These other guys that we're talking about, if you take Giannis off of Milwaukee, they're not even a playoff team. They're not even a playoff team.
I don't know. I mean,
maybe they're a playoff team because of how good
8th or 7th
Budenholzer
seed.
is.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they're 7th or an 8th seed.
Yeah.
If you take James Harden off of the Rockets with all of the injuries that they've had this season, I don't know where they are. So to me, if you're talking about in the truest sense of the term, the most valuable player to their current team, there's no comparison to say that Steph Curry is in the same conversation as Giannis in terms of importance to their team. I mean, the Bucks are looking at the lottery and hoping for overachievement.
They're not looking at the lottery,
dude. If they don't make if you're in the 7th and 8th seed, you're a biscuit away from the lottery.
No, they're not though, because Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton and those guys are too solid. Like they have a lot of solid players on the team.
Eric Bledsoe was a solid player with Phoenix, and they never sniffed the playoffs.
Yeah,
he was a solid player alongside Devin Booker, and he never sniffed the playoffs.
You bring Devin Booker over to Milwaukee, and you get a different Devin Booker, and that's the thing.
I believe that.
So when I say Eric Bledsoe, I don't just mean Eric Bledsoe in a vacuum. I mean Eric Bledsoe in a Budenholzer system, because he's much better with Budenholzer than he is.
I don't know, man. I don't see how that's close at all.
It's almost they would be like the Brooklyn Nets, you know. They'd probably be a 500 team or something like that, with Coach Bud and the squad that they have. Because Chris Middleton's a gamer.
But with Giannis,
Brook Lopez still be shooting them threes. I mean, obviously with Giannis, they're you know, I wouldn't be shocked if they won the championship this year.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It's.
But they're not a favorite.
I mean, the Warriors would probably be one of the favorites to win the championship, even without Steph. They'd be one of the favorites. You take Giannis off of Milwaukee, and nobody's going to project them higher than the 7th or 8th seed.
Oh no, I don't disagree with that. But what I think that you know is that I think the Warriors are basically going to win the championship this year. And the biggest difference is Steph. I think if you take Kevin Durant off that team and you have Steph, even this beat up version of Draymond, Clay, but Boogie's coming back, I still think they win the championship. Yeah, and I think people are mistaking that they're coasting and relaxing a bit in the regular season. They're forgetting just how ridiculous these guys are.
Oh, well, they showed a little last night. I
think Steph is what makes the Warriors unmanageable, and because their peak is so high. Like we agree, Milwaukee Eastern Conference Finals. If they don't make it there, it's a disappointment. And if they made it to the finals, that is like a successful season. If they win the championship, that would be defying expectations. If the Warriors don't win the championship, that's a fail.
That's a fail.
Right.
Exactly.
So Steph takes them from basically prohibitive odds on by far favorite to win the championship. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I say, you know, when you talk about value, it's relative. But if Steph was taking them to the peaks of the finals or the slight favorite to be the champions, I would say, well, then it's comparable. But because he makes them the overwhelming favorite, for me, I would rather have a guy that makes me the overwhelming favorite to win the championship than, you know, a guy who makes.
But he only makes them the overwhelming favorite because of the other all-stars that are on the team. It's not the same jump. Like if you're looking at how many levels are being jumped, Giannis jumps you more levels as a singular player than Steph does. Steph jumps you that high because Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Boogie Cousins, and Draymond Green are on the team.
But they haven't played with Boogie, so we don't know if he.
Well, I mean, that's why we have that concept with Giannis. I mean, you could go to a bunch of people who are basketball fans and ask them to name one of Giannis Antetokounmpo's teammates, and they would stutter and stammer before they came up with one.
Which I think has as much to do with the fact that they haven't been in the playoffs a whole lot.
I think it has a lot to do with those guys are not. They're good players.
Listen, and that's why Giannis is my choice for MVP, because he's the guy, similar to James with the injured Rocket squad.
Yeah.
That he's a guy who, you know, allows them to be super competitive when if without him they wouldn't be competitive. You get no argument from that standpoint. But I think Steph Curry has dominated this league for a really, really long time now. Like, he has torn this league up. And what has happened is he has dialed that back, not even a lot, just a little bit, so that they could acquire more talent and be unfair and other guys could shine. And that's allowed people to overlook the dramatic impact that he has on the floor. Like, he's a plus defensive player. He's an excellent player with the ball and probably the best player off the ball. Like, it's crazy. He finishes great in the lane, and he's the best three-point shooter and like one of the best free throw shooters. Like, he's bananas. He's really bananas.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from Steph as a player, even though I don't know that I totally agree with your assessment of
Here's the thing for me. I think he's the least interchangeable player in the league. Like, there's not I don't think you get the same team if you put Dame, who's the closest comparison, or Kyrie, who's maybe the next closest. I don't think you get this level of dominance as you do with Steph. Whereas Giannis, I love Giannis, but if you put James Harden in Giannis's place, you get a reasonably similar result.
No, bro.
Milwaukee's team healthy is better than Houston's team.
I mean, Giannis does so much more. Giannis is one of the best defensive players in the league, and James Harden is not a good defender.
I made that point to open, but James Harden also hits threes at a very, very high clip, and he gets fouls and hits almost all his free throws, which is a big factor.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think James Harden benefits from having Clint Capella. I'm not taking anything away from James Harden. James Harden is amazing, but Giannis does what James Harden does and what Clint Capella does.
He doesn't do what James Harden does because he doesn't hit threes.
I mean, in terms of being the ignition of his offense.
It's a different version. And here's the thing. I gave Giannis my vote. And I picked Giannis over James in that context. Mm-hmm. And I picked Giannis over James in the playoffs. Oh my God, that's an Amber Alert. I'm sorry to the people.
No, okay. I hope the baby's okay.
Okay, I think I got it. I picked Giannis over James overall in many contexts. But I do think in the regular season, James and Giannis are basically in the same situation. And if you switched places for both of them, I think both coaches would find a way to get a similar result. Whereas with Steph, I don't know if there's any player that I could switch with just Steph Curry and get the Warriors to be a team that basically can't be beaten.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't even go as far as say it can't be beat. I think every team can be beat. I mean, obviously, there's no logical way we can think of it at this point right now if everything falls into place. But I can't think of a player who I can just swap out with Giannis either. But it is what it is, but we do both agree that Giannis is the MVP.
Yes.
Let's switch gears to our newest segment, which is called Hot and Cold. We started this last week. I asked y'all to say in the comments whether or not you liked hot and cold. One person said, yeah, keep doing hot and cold. I'm just going to take y'all's silence as y'all want me to keep doing it either. Anyway, even though didn't nobody say nothing. You know, sometimes you need when you ever been to church when the preacher called, you're supposed to respond. You didn't do that. So we need to do that moving forward. All right. So in hot and cold, our first hot and cold topic is going to be UFC on ESPN +1. All right. So that one is kind of a really weird title. I really never know what they're doing with these titles, because some places call it UFC Fight Night 143 because this is the 143rd Fight Night event. Some are saying it's ESPN Plus, so it's the first event on ESPN Plus, so they're calling it UFC on ESPN +1. So I really don't know, but the card itself, I'm a little cold on this card. I'm looking at it. And I understand the novelty of Greg Hardy in the co-main event on the card, but him as a co-main event, like, he's 3-0, like, and he's fighting Alan Crowder, who's 9-3. Like, so there are so many other fights on this card that could have been, that to me are better suited for the co-main event spot. And I think that's pretty weird. You know, the main event is a good fight, obviously, Henry Cejudo against TJ Dillashaw, but I think that's really weird. Also, keep an eye on Gregor Gillespie. Gregor Gillespie and Alexander Volkanovski are my two. I don't want to call them prospects because they're both young. They're both like 30. But in terms of up and coming guys who have not had their title shot yet, and Volkanovski's title shot might be his next fight against Max Holloway. But of guys in this weight range, in that featherweight to lightweight range, these two guys are absolute animals. Gregor Gillespie's wrestling is crazy. He's going to maul Yancy Medeiros in this fight, and it's going to really be a showcase for him. So, but overall, I am kind of cold on this card. What about you?
I would say I'm warmer than cold, but not hot for the reasons that you alluded to. Even though there are some good fighters on there, I don't know if these fights are necessarily, from a head-to-head standpoint. Like, I think a lot of these fights are what they will mean going forward. So Greg Hardy still has to establish himself of, like you said, when you're 3-0, we don't really know. So this is still more information on him. Now with the Gregor Gillespie thing, what I think is interesting about that is with John Jones active and having been tested clean of his last fight, I think he's supposed to do 3 fights a year.
Well, he said he wants to fight 3 times in 2019.
Right. So if he's going to fight 3 times in 2019, this means that the light heavyweight division is going to be more active. So, so Carl Robertson, I don't know how great of a fighter he is, but anything that adds to the light heavyweight conversation, I think means more when your champion is going to be active and needs fights. So that's what I mean by it's not so much about this card, but can this card going forward have been a card that we look back and say, we're glad we saw stuff about those fighters individually? Possibly. I think for that reason, it's warm because it's it could mean more going forward.
Yeah, Carl Robertson's actually a late replacement for Ian Cutelaba. Cutelaba had to be pulled from the card because he got injured. That would have been a more wow type of a fight. But Carl Robertson's a pretty good fighter. He came from Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. He lost his debut, got choked out by Cesar Ferreira, but then he came back and won his second fight. So he's stepping up on short notice to take this fight. He does have some talent, but by the time he gets anywhere close to John Jones will either be a heavyweight or doing something else with his life.
Yeah.
So the guy in the heavyweight division, light heavyweight division that you want to look at if you're talking about a guy who's a fight or 2 away and he is really, really talented is a kid named Dominic Reyes. He has a fight coming up. He is a monster. So he's really the one in that particular weight class. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. A lot of times the cards that look like this on paper wind up being the best ones in terms of the actual in-octagon action. So, all right, let's move on.
Real quick, to be clear, I don't mean for opponents for John, but I mean with John being more active, this makes everything all the way down
more interesting. Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, it brings in more interest to the overall division.
Yeah.
All right, so we're staying in combat sports. Hot, cold, Manny Pacquiao against Adrian Broner. Showtime pay-per-view. Same day as UFC on ESPN+1. So I will be inundated with combat sports on Saturday, and I am not complaining at all. So what say you? Are you hot or cold on that?
I'm cold. I just don't tend to be into 40-year-old boxers for the most part. The true exception to that was Bernard Hopkins, because I love the way his style aged in particular. But Manny Pacquiao, I think, is clearly past his peak. So when it comes to boxing, is not a sport where I enjoy watching guys past their peak, and I think Manny is more than a step past his peak. The Manny Pacquiao that I watched when I was younger is not on this earth anymore. So, for that, it's not super interested in it.
Yeah, I am blazing hot. The thing of it is that's part of the beauty of the fight, is because Manny's not the same guy that he used to be, but it's not necessarily this watered down, massively decreased version. if you've seen Pacquiao training and if you've watched him in these last few weeks and months and over the last year, you see him and you see Pacquiao is still a very, very good fighter, still very quick. The
I
thing
didn't
of
say
it,
he was a scrub. I just said
no,
he's
yeah,
not,
the thing of it
best in
is
the
that
world.
he hasn't been a power puncher for a while. And the reason being is because he's not fighting at a smaller weight class anymore. You know, Manny's power was, featherweight, super featherweight, down in that range. That's when he was pop. He had a lot of pop. Now he stings guys, but he's not a knockout fighter like he used to be. I think the knockout over Lucas Matisse was his first knockout victory in like 9 years or something crazy. The last one before that was against Miguel Cotto. So he had, I don't know how many fights in a row since he'd had a stoppage. So that's not necessarily who he is anymore, but he's still electric to watch. Broner is one of the most polarizing fighters in the world because everybody knows the talent level that he has, but his commitment is up and down. But it does look as though, I mean, I know someone who got an opportunity to visit his camp, and we're talking about 3 weeks before the fight, and he was already shredded, looking like he was ready to go like the next day in terms of from a physical condition. And I think Broner knows that this fight is super important for his future. And he knows that he has to put together some really meaningful victories because the whole persona thing is only going to last for so long before you get to a point where people start saying, hey, dude, I hear what you're saying. I see all the flash and this, and I see the act, but there's not enough substance behind it. Beating Manny Pacquiao would be huge for him. So we got two guys who are extremely popular at two completely different stages of their career. And there's also this thing that's sitting up away from them. The winner of this fight has a really good chance to fight Floyd Mayweather. Now, I personally want Floyd Mayweather to go away, right? Because I just think he's done enough in the sport. I think at this point he's only holding it back. But you can't deny the appeal or the shine that has, because it's going to be, if that happens, if Pacquiao fights Mayweather for a second time, it's going to be the biggest sporting event outside of the Super Bowl that year. It is. If Broner fights Mayweather, it's going to be a massive event as well. The teacher student, the trash talk is going to be ridiculous going up to it. So there's a lot attached to it. So because of all of the layers, I'm blazing hot for it. So let's skip to the next hot cold topic. This one I'm gonna let you ring in on, hot or cold on the NFL postseason, the playoffs for the rest of the way.
Well, before we go to the rest of the way, I have to talk about how hot I am on the fact the Cowboys got eliminated and extended their run of futility. How about them Cowboys?
That's a bunch of hate right there.
I'm full of love.
That's a bunch of hate.
I love the Rams. I love them for what they did. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Going forward, I'm probably lukewarm. I'm a Tom Brady fan. I've liked Tom Brady since the beginning. I just like the way he plays the game. I do agree with those that say he's not exactly the Tom Brady that he was.
Oh, of course. I mean,
but because he can look like old Tom Brady sometimes, and I think the decision making is still there. But it'll be interesting to see if he can extend his run going forward, because I know he wants to play. I know he feels good and he wants to keep that going. But overall, probably warm. I've been warm on football for a few years now. I think the sport has been struggling with this contact and officiating and CTE stuff and all that. And I'm afraid that the best football may be in the past. And that might be necessary because of the cost of the best football. So it's hard for me to be super duper excited about football unless my hometown Giants are in the mix.
Yeah, I don't have that. Like, there's been some stuff with officiating this year that I definitely have issue with, right? And I do think there's some room for improvement for sure. But I thoroughly enjoyed this NFL season. I really did. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was kind of strange. It was kind of strange because I didn't think that I would, right?
So
I
you
didn't
enjoyed all of it?
most of it. I enjoy most of it. I enjoy most of it. Those we would not speak of. But I mean, I enjoyed the season, but I am extremely frigid on the rest of the postseason. And the reason being is because it's totally selfish, right? There's probably 3 really good football games left to be played in this season.
Yeah.
But I am not interested in them because I'm one of those people that when my team loses, you know what? It's really just football because of how much finality there is in a football loss.
Yeah.
You lose, you don't play for another week, and then you just got to sit on that for the rest of the week. The finality in losing a football game in the postseason takes things to a whole nother level, right? The only thing worse than seeing your rooting interest lose from a sports standpoint than watching them lose in football is watching them lose in combat sports. That's the only thing worse, because if you're rooting for a boxer or a mixed martial artist and they lose, not only they lose the contest and lose whatever was at stake, they got beat up too. So, you know, that's the only thing that's worse, right? And I just honestly, man, I'm not like even mad at Cody Parkey or anything like that, but I will tell you this: my thirst for football was zapped.
Yeah.
With that, it was really zapped. I was just like, dog, really? Okay, homie. All righty. It was just gonna, like, Patrick Mahomes is awesome, and he is probably gonna do something phenomenal against the Patriots. I wouldn't be shocked. You know, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Patriots and the Chiefs go down to 50-45 game, and they're both just rifling, him and, and he stares Brady down and wins. And now we're talking about has the torch been passed, or did Patrick Mahomes snatch the torch from Tom Brady? I wouldn't be shocked, right? But I am just not all that interested. I'm just not. And it's not an indictment on the NFL. It's not an indictment on any of the teams. I'm just, maybe if there was a guy that I could latch on to, like a Cam Newton, or back in the day, Steve McNair, I'd latch on to the guy, like a Mike Vick, and I'm like, okay, I want this guy to win. I really want this guy to win. But there's nobody like that for me. Patrick Mahomes is kind of that way for me. Not really, though, because I didn't, like, I liked the kid, but I don't know, I didn't gravitate to him the same way as I have some of the other players in the past, people that I just like really rooted for. So yeah, I have no one left. So
yeah, I think there, like you said, there's probably 3 good games left. So I think it'll be, interesting going forward. Like I said, I'm kind of warm. I'm not cold. I'm warm. Not hot. It's hard for me to see myself being totally hot on football because of the brand of football that's being played. I think it's good and I'm enjoying it, but it's not. I don't feel like it's the peak, and I think they have to figure out. There's still some growing pains right now with football.
Yeah, definitely things are coming into focus, but overall, I was okay with the product for the most part. I just, a couple of things here and there. All right, so with some finality here, I would love to hear what's on your mind, as long as it's not packed with hate and anger and just so anti-City of Wind. It's just, it's really, I'm disturbed by it.
Your city has been through a lot this year. Y'all still going through some things. So I would not pick on your city. In fact, I'm gonna go to game into a company that's going through a lot.
Yeah.
Activision.
Yes, they are.
Activision has recently lost Bungie. Well, they've divorced with Bungie. Bungie has left, and now Bungie has taken Destiny with them. And some people are rejoicing. Some people are, skeptical of how that would go both ways. So my rant is basically, when we look at something like this, I think this is something that needs to happen a little bit more across the industry, where some of these independent companies that make beautiful products need to go on their own and find investors that aren't as hands-on and demanding as an Activision, because Activision and Electronic Arts seem to bring some of these studios into a model that compromises the product.
Yeah.
We've talked about Anthem and stuff like that, you know, going to the past and with BioWare, and that's coming up. Their demo's coming out soon, and we'll see how it is. But BioWare is known for making great stories, and they look like they're being moved towards a product that's not about that.
Yep.
And that's a scary thing. And Destiny looks like it's going to go the opposite way, where Bungie is known for, you know, not just their shooting mechanics, which are tops in the field. And I think that ultimately saved Destiny while they worked out other issues. But now what we've heard about the Activision Bungie thing is that in the development of Destiny, they were frequently halted and had to make a hard left turn on production.
Yes.
And that's why when both Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 released, it wasn't a game that, forget what fans were happy with, Bungie wasn't happy with it yet. And Bungie can't come out and say, we're not happy with this product, but you can tell by the way they engage the community, the way they update the game, how it is until they are happy with it. And then when they do become happy with it, they say, well, we're really happy with this, that, and the other. Like right now, they're happy with Destiny 2. Most fans of Destiny 2 are happy with Destiny 2. It's a good game right now. Took a year and change, well, about a year to get there, because they had to fight to get there. And who do they have to fight? Activision and their shareholders. And they won't be under that anymore. And that's a big applause for me. And I'm not even an overall Activision hater.
Right.
It's like any other company. I don't like them when they're bad. I like them when they're good. It's that simple.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we are usually, you know, as fans.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I hope that this starts a trend of more CD Projekt Reds out there, where companies are, and this is going to close my rant, sometimes it has to be enough to make a good game that a lot of people buy. Sometimes it's not about making every single dollar that you can possibly make. Sometimes it's not about becoming the next Harry Potter, the next GTA. That'll happen sometimes, and usually you don't see it coming. And other times it's not going to happen. People didn't see Fortnite coming. Fortnite actually came out and did nothing when it was the PvP game.
Yep.
And then they ripped off PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and added Minecraft to it and became the biggest game in the world.
Yeah.
No one could predict that. And now they're showing their own agency and becoming an industry unto themselves with the profits that they made from Fortnite.
Yeah,
so
stop getting sued for dances.
Everybody's getting sued for dances, though. Destiny's getting sued. It's real quick. The reason they sue for dances is because they want to copyright the dances. And in order to copyright something, you have to go out and say, hey, this is mine. And that's what the suing is. It's not like they're trying to get all of the money from these guys.
No, yeah.
But they got to get in that court. But anyway, so that's pretty much my rant. It's not about anything bad or anything like that. It's actually starting from a good thing. I just hope to see more of it, because we're starting more and more to see how these larger companies and their shareholder concerns are keeping us from good games, like with EA canceling this Star Wars game recently as well.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I agree. I'm always for having the person with talent and the entrepreneur or the smaller business going out on their own and not having to go to someone else for distribution. And now you go to someone else for distribution, and now because they're bigger and have the means to put you in more places, now they take control of your project. And oftentimes development studios don't like it. I mean, sometimes the publisher makes probably some good decisions. There's probably some times where it happens. Kingdom Hearts 3 was being rendered on the Luminosity division engine at first, which is what they had been using before. And while it had some kinks to it or whatever, Square Enix comes in and tells them, hey, we're scrapping that. We're scrapping that whole thing. you're gonna use Unreal Engine 4, you know, which may ultimately make the game better, but you really just took these creators and said, no, you guys are going this way, you know. And you know, if you fail, you should fail because it was you. If you succeed, you know, it is what it is. So I definitely agree with that. I think I would love to see other, you know, other companies doing that, especially once you have established yourself, like Destiny. You know, Destiny is one of the probably 5 biggest online console games out there right now. You know, it's like Destiny, Grand Theft, Fortnite, you know, Call of Duty. You know what I mean?
It's way up there.
It's probably right there. So you don't, the point of it is they don't need Activision anymore.
I'm not sure if they ever did. And that's the thing I think with these companies is, I know it's harder from a financial standpoint to make these giant games that cost hundreds of $millions to make and go out there, because if you fail, that could be it. Like everybody could be just looking for freelance work after that.
Yeah.
And so I hope that they're able to create within their means, but make great things. Because BioWare, if you look at BioWare before EA, it's a monster great company, like monster great company. And now every release since then has been like getting iffier and iffier until we have Mass Effect Andromeda, and now we're looking at Anthem like, oh God.
Yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda was terrible. I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible based off of what my expectations were.
Yes, I think officially Mass Effect Andromeda is like a 7 of a game overall in the grand scope of gaming. But compared to Mass Effect, it's like a 3. Yeah. Because the Mass Effect trilogy was arguably the greatest RPGs of its generation. Yeah. And it was a long generation, right? So, and again, Anthem is looking kind of shallow. Doesn't look like there's a lot of story. We'll see when it comes out. Give it a chance. But I hope BioWare gets set free in a way that they're also able to make great games again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's all we got for you guys this week. Appreciate you watching as always. Make sure, as we said earlier on, make sure you leave a like on the video. Also, don't forget to share it. And if you have not yet subscribed, do that. And also keep in mind, we want to get these 10,000 views so we can get the At Me Bro channel out there separately from this. But I don't mean I want everybody to start watching me to leave. So get your mind together. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching as always. God bless. Peace.
Pocket, I'll be weak. I'm rather unique.